Oftentimes, we hear the phrase, what type of a future are we leaving for the next generation? And what type of an example are we setting for them to follow? Well, when it comes to educational and social inequities in Black America, the answer is we still have a lot of work to do. Going straight to the source and talking to the people who are living the experience and the experiment is often the most authentic way to recalibrate your focus and energy on this important topic. Because the young people are truly our future. As a result, I spent part of my weekend chatting with Jordan Davis. Jordan is an education speaker and graduate associate at the Center for New Designs and Learning and Scholarship at Georgetown University. Davis has also earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications from McDaniel College. He combines interpersonal communication skills and critical theory to address issues in higher education, student success, and social justice. He has spoken on all of these issues as a TEDx speaker, and he joined me this week to discuss how we can eradicate these inequities in higher education for African American students and other minorities. And finally, he also defined for him what it means to be Black in America. Are you ready for an interesting and consequential discussion about education, race, and sports? If so, I'm Kevin McShann, and let's have this conversation. Jordan, if you're ready, I'll formally welcome you to the show, and I'm excited to talk to you about your background in education and social justice. Great to see you this morning, and happy Saturday, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Saturday to you too. I'm ready to get started.
Absolutely. So, Jordan, tell me that you have a passion in eradicating social inequities for minorities in education. So, I'm wondering if we can kick off our conversation by you just detailing that passion for me, buddy.
Absolutely. So I'll start by talking about how my passion for education started, and then I'll kind of connect the social justice aspect to it a little bit later in my story. But for those who don't know, I was able to transform from a C and D student in high school to somebody who earned straight A's and excelled in public speaking. So public speaking really became my avenue and motivation for being successful in school. And I decided to use, my skills in public speaking to share, career development skills and, advice for academic success for students at the college level. But what I realized, especially later in my college career as a communication major, I started to take social justice oriented classes that kind of merged communication skills with social justice. So for example, I took a really transformative class called intercultural communication. And what I learned from that class is I was able to learn about just the general, societal inequities that are faced by not only, Black and Brown communities, but also by the LGBTQIA plus community and by those who identify as disabled. And I was able to connect the dots between, some of the problems that I saw in education as far as, what leads to achievement gaps in education and how those gaps are exacerbated by these discriminatory practices that we see based on race, based on gender, based on ability. So really that's where that passion came from, was my experience in college, taking social justice oriented classes, already being passionate about student success and student development. And that's definitely something that I plan to expand on as I study higher education at Georgetown this upcoming fall.
Well, first and foremost, I want to congratulate you for being accepted into Georgetown. It's a great school, and I'm sure that your educational journey is just a beginning. But so, congratulations on the next chapter of your educational career.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate that.
And Jordan, as you know, I was born with cerebral palsy, and you had mentioned your passion for equality and equity for folks with disabilities. And, you know, I live my life through a model that I've coined, that inclusion is the gateway to independence. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how we foster more educational opportunities for folks with disabilities.
Now, that's an excellent question, Kevin. I think a lot of the reform that is happening in higher education right now is at the institutional level, right? So there's all of these policies being implemented to make sure that those who identify as disabled are included. But I feel as though those efforts need to be expanded to the community level. So, for example, if you put in place, policies or even certain scholarships for, people who identify as disabled to take advantage of certain programming to help them become, to help them assimilate into these academic programs that they're engaging with. Those things might be successful, but on the other hand, if you don't address some of the discriminatory practices of your student body, right? If those who identify as disabled are not welcomed by the student body, if those who identify as disabled are not welcomed by community partners, surrounding organizations that you might want to intern with, things of that nature. So you have to really look at the entire education community and say, we're not only focused on reform at the institutional level or at the college level, but we have to get all of our shareholders in education on board, meaning our students need to be, well versed in making sure that they are including, those who identify as disabled in their everyday lives. We need to make sure that the surrounding organizations and stakeholders are doing the exact same thing in order for these individuals to be supported, not only in the educational aspect, but of course after graduation, when it comes to searching for jobs and really being able to mobilize themselves after graduation. So
yeah, most of here in Canada, most of the services for people with disabilities on a college or an educational level and at the end of high school. So I think it's very important to foster different ways of opportunity once you get to the college level for people with disabilities. So I appreciate that. And Jordan, I also know that you're a motivational speaker and you have some experience speaking. So I'm curious to get you to decipher between the difference between gratification and fulfillment.
Sure, Kevin, that's an excellent question. I really do believe that the difference between gratification and fulfillment is that gratification is short term and it's something that's tangible. It's something that you can see, and it's something that a lot of people want and desire. When fulfillment is something that's more subconscious, and fulfillment is also more long term. So fulfillment is something that I think a lot of people don't even really think about on the daily basis. When you ask somebody, what fulfills them, that's a really hard question for a lot of people to answer. I think fulfillment is, again, something that's long term. It's kind of a state of being, whereas gratification is a short term feeling that you have. I know we throw around the term instant gratification, especially when we talk about things like social media, and especially in the fast-paced technology age, a lot of people seek instant gratification. And I feel as though gratification, again, it's something that people desire. It's something that you can kind of put your hands on to say, okay, this is what gratifies me. This is what gratification looks like. But I feel like fulfillment is more long-term, and it's something that it's kind of harder to piece together, and it's something that's subconscious. A lot of people don't even really think about what fulfills them in that way. So.
Absolutely. And Jordan, well, growing up in America today, you watch the news, and certainly the death of George Floyd and the political culture has certainly redefined the way we define living Black in America today. And as a young college student, I'm wondering your thoughts on what it means to live Black in America today.
Yeah, Kevin, I think, and I think you'll definitely agree with a few of the responses that I give. I think to be specifically a Black man in America today, means a lot. It's a heavy load to carry. I think one of the things that we have to carry as Black men is that we are feared in our society, specifically in America and also in Canada, where you live as well. When we're walking down the street, we are arguably the most feared archetype there is, you know what I mean? And of course, that comes from the history of generational trauma, of systemic racism, of, overt interpersonal racism, and also the stereotypes that are placed on Black men, that we are aggressive, that we are confrontational, that we, that we don't have feelings, or we aren't able to precisely express our feelings. And of course, all of those things are incorrect, and it kind of puts us in a box as Black men. But I think also with that fear that society has of Black men, there's also power that we possess as Black men. I think, I could speak to myself personally as a Black man. I feel as though I'm carrying the torch of all of the previous generations of strong, successful Black men that came before me. I think when you talk about, white people, all white people have to do in America is to be successful is kind of maintain the status quo, right? As long as they are, the superior racial group, as long as they're the superior gender, if you're a white man in America, all you have to do is maintain what your forefathers did. But as a Black man in America, I feel as though as I carry the torch, I have to constantly improve. I have to be an advocate for those who, might not be as privileged in that way. And I definitely have to carry the torch of those who came before me in order to see a lot of the social justice changes that are necessary in our society to come to fruition.
Let's dive into that, Jordan. I know that you're passionate in this area. So tell me, how do you define full inclusion and diversity when it comes to social justice?
Yeah, so I think that there's a personal aspect to it, and I think there's also an economic aspect to it. As America is a capitalist, individualist society. So I feel as though a lot of the social justice work that is put out, in order for it to be approved by our institutions, there has to be some sort of economic gain to it, right? And that's kind of the sad truth. But at the end of the day, I understand, and a lot of people understand where that comes from, just kind of the state of our society right now. A lot of people don't know that yearly we face a $956 billion deficit by not addressing racial inequities in higher education. And I said billion with the letter B, not million, $956 billion that we lose every single year. And, for example, that, large number is attributed to, Black talent, or Black and brown talent that is being turned away each and every year because of systemic issues, or the lack of programming and resources for Black and brown students that are just as talented as white and privileged students, but don't have those, career development resources like, the internship experiences or the specific scholarships, or even the connections that are made that white people are able to make more easily, because of those inequities that they aren't facing, right? So there's definitely an economic aspect to it. And, I always try to interject that when I talk about inclusion, because Like I said, a lot of the institutional change that happens around diversity and inclusion is usually mutually beneficial, right? So these institutions, if they are not incentivized to make the change, if they're not going to come out on the other end, you know, in a good spot, the change isn't going to be made. So I in this change does not only occur in education, right? I learned during my my classes at McDaniel that when you talk about Black film, like the Black film industry and Black Hollywood, you know, Black Hollywood loses $30 billion a year. Like Hollywood in general loses $30 billion a year by underfunding Black films as opposed to, you know, white films, you know, films that are directed and produced by white directors and white creators. So you can see this in virtually every industry that we have here in our society. And when you add all of those industries up, that's $1 trillion loss that we're having, right? So there's definitely an economic and societal benefit to eradicating a lot of the social justice issues that we see. And then, of course, on a personal level, if we want to be a happier society, right? If we want to have a society with less crime, with less poverty, with less, you know, despair, you know, we need to be able to improve these things. And I feel like the first thing in addressing the personal aspect of it is making privileged individuals, specifically white people, realize that social justice and inclusion will not come to fruition unless they are willing to defy systems that benefit them. So again, social justice will not take place until white people are uncomfortable, essentially, right? You have to be willing to give something up in order for, you know, inclusion to be achieved. And again, even though you're giving something up in the short term, like I said, there's economic benefit, there's societal benefit, there's benefits to mental health when you don't have, you know, kind of a race war going on in our society. So there's all of these different benefits that are more long-term that, you know, privileged communities can't really grasp. Like I said, they grasp to the short-term benefits, that gratification that we talked about earlier, but they don't see the long-term aspects of, you know, eradicating a lot of these social inequities that we have in our society. And like I said, there's a personal element to it, but there's also an economic element to it that I think will really galvanize people to make this change if they were aware of it.
Yeah, thank you so very much for sharing that. And I wanted to transition back to just education equality and equity and just for a second. I'm wondering your thoughts on how we elevate the educational experience for Black America.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. I'll answer that by two ways. Of course, there's dozens of ways and methods that we can use in order to, and it really should be used, you know, simultaneously and in cohesion in order to enhance the educational experiences of Black and Brown people. But I think the first step is getting people like us in positions to make the change. And a lot of that comes with access. You know, it depends on who has access to education, because in order to be an education change maker, ironically, you have to have an education. Like if you don't have, you know, Black and Brown students that are graduating with a bachelor's degree within 6 years, if you don't have Black and Brown students that are graduating with a master's degree or even a PhD in education administration or, you know, curriculum development, really these positions that explicitly determine the quality of education, like an administrative role, like a curriculum designer role, you know, these inequities are not going to be met. You know, it's one thing to instruct white people on how to change these systems to make them more, you know, equitable and accessible to Black and Brown students, but there's a completely different scenario when you actually have a Black and Brown person in the role that has a hands-on, you know, role in changing those things. So, and I think that even trickles down to the educators, right? When we have more Black and Brown educators, students feel more inclined, they feel more motivated in order to, you know, engage in their classes. And they also see a role model. I actually talked with I'm an individual that I attended McDaniel College with. McDaniel College is the college that I attended for my bachelor's degree. And there was a guy that I played football with that graduated 2 years before I did. I ran into him at the gym the other day, and he's actually a teacher in one of the counties here in Maryland. And he was telling me that it makes my job a lot easier because the students can see themselves in me. So it's really just it's something small, but it's something so large at the same time. When students are able to see Black and brown individuals in these roles as teachers, as principals, as administrators, or even behind the scenes as curriculum designers, knowing that the curriculum is being designed around their interests and around their experiences. These are all the changes that are really going to make a difference when you talk about improving the quality of education that Black and brown people are experiencing.
Representation matters, absolutely, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it does.
So, Jordan, I want to have a little bit of fun with you, buddy. I know that we have mutual passion for both sports and communications. As you know, I'm an old sports reporter, and I know that you have a communications degree. So, tell me, what's captivating your attention in the sports landscape these days, and how do you think your communication background helps you now in the work you do?
Yeah, so that's definitely a twofold question. The thing that is most interesting to me right now that's happening in sports is the whole conversation around name, image, and likeness. I know that legislation was just passed, I think, last week that allowed NCAA Division I athletes and really all athletes in the NCAA in order to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. And I think that's really a big step, but I think it's a temporary Band-Aid on something that has a much larger issue. And I really feel as though when you talk to other people from like other countries about just the whole structure of the NCAA, about how college athletes make billions of dollars for these institutions, and you have the coaches and the athletic directors making millions of dollars, and players aren't seeing any of that money. It's hard for those individuals to grasp that because it is so ridiculous. And yes, players are now able to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, but that's not money that is automatically coming to them, right? That's just extra work that they have to do in the off season. That's extra work that they have to do during the semester while they're in the middle of their season in order to make money, in order to make ends meet. And really, it's only the top 5 to 10% of Division I athletes that are really going to capitalize off of this and make an adequate amount of money. I really feel as though the billions of dollars that are generated, some of that should go directly to the college athletes. So college athletes shouldn't have to try to make money on the side, in order to, be financially stable. And I say that because there's literally no other legal structure in America that allows unpaid labor in that way. So that would be like me working at a company like Amazon, right? And me not getting paid for the work that I do. Amazon is a multi-billion-dollar company, and I'm working for Amazon day in and day out. And Amazon tells me, okay, Jordan, you're not gonna get paid by me, but you can go make money somewhere else off of your name or something like that, right? You can go have speaking engagements on the side. So that is essentially what college athletes are going through right now. They're not getting a cut of the billions of dollars. And that's why I think the system is really flawed in that way, because the billions of dollars should not be reinvested into the athletic programs. It shouldn't be reinvested into the coaches' salaries. I think it really should be invested into the educational experiences of the students, whether that be directly through scholarships, whether that be direct payment to athletes for all of the work that they do in order to make the product that is the NCAA, and really to just enhance the overall educational experiences of students at the institution. So the conversation around name, image, and likeness is really of interest to me, and I definitely want to do a little bit more research over the next couple of weeks to see the developments that are being had in this area.
Absolutely. And tell me, Jordan, how do you think your communication background forms the person you are today and the work that you do?
Yeah, so obviously communicating is something that we do every single day. I consider myself more of a public speaker than a motivational speaker, because I feel like I have the propensity to talk about so many different things. I don't want to put myself in the box and label myself as a motivator, just speaking about motivation. But I do believe that my communication background plays a role in the everyday experiences that I have with the people that are closest to me. When you talk about having difficult conversations about, things like racial inequities in higher education, it is those communication skills that I have, the listening skills that I have, the ability to articulate myself in a certain way that is not aggressive, it's not assertive, being able to have the emotional intelligence that I use when I speak in order to have these difficult conversations that really does lead to results and leads to productive conversations that I have. I think I've also improved my skills as an interviewer as well. I know, of course, you have a lot of experience interviewing, and how skillful that art is. It's a lot. It looks a lot easier than it actually is to sit down and interview somebody and ask them the right questions, come up with the right questions, and really draw the most out of who you're talking to. So, I definitely see myself in the future either starting some sort of podcast or some sort of forum where, I'm asking individuals questions so that we can, get answers from those individuals as well. I don't just want to be a talking box, right? I want to be able to exercise all of the skills that I've learned throughout my undergraduate and now graduate career when it comes to communicating. And I think one of those aspects is also, being a good journalist in my own right, being able to ask the right questions so that we can have the right answers to a lot of these issues that we have.
Yeah, I tell you, if you ever start that podcast and you want to get us, I'm only an email away, buddy.
Absolutely. You'll be one of my first guests. Whenever that happens, I will keep you in mind, I promise.
And I appreciate that. One piece of advice I'll give you about constructing questions is embrace the power of research, buddy.
Absolutely. Yep. The power is definitely in the research, for sure.
Because if you have the research, you have the knowledge to form the questions, right?
Yep.
So, Jordan, I know that you have a past as a college football player, and how do you think your athletic past has helped form some of the principles that you live your life by?
Yeah, so the first things that come to mind when I talk about my college football career is that just football in general, because I've been playing football since the age of 9 years old. So I played from age 9 to age 19. So I played football for 10 years. And through those 10 years, I've gotten skills in, discipline. It's definitely developed my character. It's taught me what delayed gratification means. I actually played a year and a half of college football and never played a single snap. I was somebody who, rode the bench, right? I was 7 deep on the depth chart. There were like 7 guys at my position. I played strong safety in college. And, that was a really competitive position, and I had to work really hard, just to stay on the team. So, having that sort of delayed gratification, working towards something every single day, and not expecting anything, but just making the most of the opportunities that you're granted on the daily basis, is definitely a skill that I learned through football. But I think the most important thing that I learned from football is that I have limited control over my destiny, but the control that I have is still important. And for those who don't know, I actually quit playing football midway through my sophomore season. That was a time that was really trying for me. I was excelling academically as I always had, but I was suffering through, a lot of anxiety and depression, a lot of stress that I was having, at the time. And football wasn't really serving me in any way. I didn't feel gratified or fulfilled from football. So I decided to walk away from the sport in order to not only focus on my mental health, but at the time to develop my public speaking business, which now today has led to, TEDx talks and, being able to talk to clients from all over the world, really. So, quitting football was one of the hardest decisions that I've ever made, but I definitely think that was one of the most important decisions and really the best decision I've ever made, because I was able to walk away from something that had served me for so long. And I was able to realize the exact moment where it was no longer serving me. And I was able to walk away and really grow and develop as a person from making that difficult decision.
Well, I tell you, that decision allowed us to have our conversation this morning. So I'm grateful for that. And I have to tell you, you talked about delayed gratification. I'm a Detroit Lions fan, buddy, so I have plenty of practice in that area, bud.
Yes, you do. Yes. Oh my God. Please, like, bless your heart. You are the definition of delayed gratification as a Detroit Lions fan. So,
Well, yeah, well, I've already come to the conclusion that they're not going to win anything of significance during my lifetime, but you got to live and die with the teams you ride with, right?
I suppose, I mean, you could have said the same thing about the Cleveland Browns a couple of years ago. So maybe you'll have, a good draft coming up or something to turn around within the next 5 years or so. You never know. Like I said, the Cleveland Browns, the Buffalo Bills, nobody knew the Bills were going to be this good a couple of years ago. So, it ebbs and flows. But hopefully you all get some sort of, team success soon, at least the playoffs. Y'all just got to make the playoffs or something.
Well, I tell myself, Jordan, as a Lions fan, every year there's always next year.
Always next. You got to keep that mindset. Yeah.
So tell me when as a sports enthusiast, what are you following? What's grabbing your interest these days in the world of sports?
Yeah, definitely football and basketball. I'm definitely locked in on the NBA Finals. As a lot of people have said, this has been one of the more entertaining NBA playoffs that we've ever had, even with all the injuries that have taken place. And sidebar, speaking of injuries, I actually just endured a minor fracture in my foot a couple of days ago from playing basketball. And I thought about like all the other injuries that like NBA players have had. I joked with my mom earlier, earlier yesterday morning, like if I was in the NBA like finals, like I could probably play, but it's probably not smart for me to do that because I'm not a professional basketball player. So I'm gonna have to hang my basketball shoes up for a couple of weeks to let my foot heal. But going back to basketball, like I said, I'm definitely locked in on the NBA Finals. I'm from Baltimore, so I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. So I'm looking forward to see what Lamar Jackson does. Former NFL MVP. Looking forward to what he does this season as well. So,
do you think the Ravens can win a Super Bowl with Lamar?
undoubtedly. Lamar is the epitome of where the league is going as far as style of play. You see guys like Patrick Mahomes running around. You see guys like Kyler Murray, running around, slinging the football. That's all Lamar's game. And I think, J.K. Dobbins, our starting running back, who's heading into his second year, is going to have a breakout season. I think we have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Really, the only team in our way is the Kansas City Chiefs. So if we can get a win on the Chiefs in the playoffs, I think we're destined to win the Super Bowl for sure.
No love for the Browns or the Steelers in your own division?
No love for the Browns or the Steelers, man. We, those are always close games. So I always have, respect for those teams. But at the end of the day, we always figure out a way to make the playoffs. And usually, we have to beat one of those two teams in order to advance. And usually we do. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm worried about Patrick Mahomes and what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to do. So.
Well, it's not worth nearly $1 billion for nothing, right?
Exactly, right.
So tell me, Jordan, when we look at the NBA Finals, I'm curious since you brought it up. It is a more entertaining brand of basketball, but they tell me that the ratings are down. Do you think it's because of all the injuries in basketball and that there aren't sort of the marquee names in the finals?
Yeah, Kevin. I think it's partly because of the injuries and just the matchup. Like if you're not like a locked in basketball fan, when you see the Phoenix Suns versus the Milwaukee Bucks, you're like, where do these teams come from? Like you're used to seeing like the Lakers and the Celtics and all of these different teams. Even the New York Knicks rings a bell for a lot of people. So for the casual basketball fan, the casual sports fan isn't gonna just lock into the finals. If they really don't like basketball. I think another part that contributes to the low ratings is also because outside is opening up, right? People don't want to be locked in the house on a Saturday night watching basketball. They rather be out, with their friends, or going to the club, or bowling, or doing whatever people do on a Saturday night, pre-COVID. I think we're starting to get at least a little bit more normalcy when it comes to people, having fun and going out because of that. So I don't think people are going to be glued to their couches watching the finals when they could be out, partying and what have you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jordan, they tell me that you have a special place in your hometown, in your heart for your hometown. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about that.
Yeah, man. So I was born and raised in Baltimore County. I've also spent a lot of time in Baltimore City. I played youth tackle football in Baltimore City. My church is located in Baltimore City. So I really have a love for just the entire city of Baltimore. Like I said, I'm a lifelong Ravens fan, so that's definitely kind of galvanized me as a Baltimorean. And I'm glad to, stay in the DMV because, like I said, I'll be moving to Arlington, Virginia to start at Georgetown. So I'm not going to be very far at all. That definitely played a role in where I wanted to go for grad school. I definitely wanted to stay local, and I think I could call I want to be able to call DC my permanent home. There's a lot of things that I love about DC as well. Of course, Baltimore doesn't have a professional basketball team. So the Washington Wizards, I've been to several Washington Wizards games. So I don't only have a love for Baltimore, but I also have just like a general love for the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, this entire region as a whole. So.
I'm curious, since you brought that up, who do you think the Wizards are going to hire as their next head coach, Bud?
Oh, that is a great question. Something tells me that it's either going to be Doc Rivers, because a lot of people are saying that Doc Rivers' time in Philadelphia is up, like even just after like one season. The Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid were supposed to at least go to, the conference finals, right? So the fact that the 76ers dropped off later puts Doc Rivers in kind of like the coaching carousel in the offseason. And I also think like a lot of former players are getting opportunities to be head coaches. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw, a former player like Chauncey Billups, for example, go from an assistant coach role with the Phoenix Suns, I believe he's with right now, to, especially if they win the championship, to go to being a head coach for, the Washington Wizards. So I could definitely see a former player, filling that role.
Yeah, Chauncey actually was just hired by Portland, Bud.
Oh, really? Okay, as their head coach?
Yeah, he's the new head coach, Bud.
Oh, that's super exciting. Okay, so Chauncey's off the market. So I guess we got to keep
Chauncey's
looking.
off the list, so you got to dip into the pool somewhere else. But I'm also curious to ask you whether you think the Wizards are going to keep Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, Bunny.
Yeah, so I think I don't know what they're going to do, right? But I believe that it's either going to be a full blow up of the team, like they're going to do away with both Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, or they're going to try to keep the exact same nucleus of guys and try to run it back, maybe add an additional piece. So I think it's either going to be complete chaos and like, blow up the team and start from scratch, or they're going to try to run it back because, the Wizards were a playoff team. Like they were able to make the playoffs. So, if you add an additional piece in the offseason, if you keep, Westbrook and Beal, DC isn't a bad place to live. It's a pretty exciting market to be in. So if we're able to get, a high profile free agent in the offseason, then I think we'd be able to do some damage with our current team. So.
Well, that depends on who they hire as head coach, right? That'll tell you a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And tell me, Jordan, if you, I'm also wondering your thoughts on if you've given any thought to what you want your personal or professional legacy to be defined by.
Yeah, so when I first started JD Speaks, I actually I created a personal mission statement, and that statement is to honor a legacy of education and leadership development. And it's not until recently that I was able to reconnect with that statement. I feel like the COVID-19 pandemic, for me, as for a lot of other people, has really been kind of mind changing and transformative as far as just the way that I think about work-life balance, as far as the way that I think about, my own business, my personal brand, and how I want to be recognized and how I want to be remembered. If you were to ask me this question about a year and a half ago, I would probably say, I want to be remembered as, one of the top motivational speakers in the world, and I want to be able to travel and do all of these amazing things. But I think now my mission is to simply just be an educator, to be a servant leader. If I'm the top motivational speaker in Baltimore and I don't have any other accolades outside of that, that's completely fine with me. I don't strive as much toward, a status or, a dollar amount as I did, a year and a half ago. Now my focus is to just fulfill the mission statement that I set for myself, which is to honor a legacy of education and leadership development. Hopefully I'll be remembered as, an educator, somebody who went out of their way to kind of teach individuals and to communicate with those, that might not understand some things, and to also be a recipient of education as well. So really, that's just my goal. And of course, hopefully I'll be able to do that after I graduate from Georgetown in a professional capacity. So.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, perspective is a powerful thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Even when a perspective change is unexpected, like a pandemic, if it took a pandemic in order for me to change my perspective, then, I could at least be able to say that out of all the chaos and devastation that came from it, there's also some silver lining in that as well. So.
100%. And Jordan, finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, I know there are a number of ways to do that. So I'm wondering if you could share those with me.
Yeah, thank you for the alley-oop, Kevin. So you all can find me on my professional public speaking website, which is www.jdspeaks.com. Again, www.jdspeaks.com. You can find me on Instagram at JDSpeaks. I'm really active on there. Not as active on YouTube, but if you look up JD Speaks on YouTube, you can scroll through and probably be able to find my YouTube channel. I post occasional videos on there as well. I know that this is orientation season, so if you're looking for some type of high school orientation speaker or college orientation speaker or some type of program for your incoming students, I definitely think I'll be a great speaker for that. And last thing I'll add here, I've been revitalizing my public speaking instructional model. So now I'm getting into providing talks on how to improve public speaking skills. So the public speaking instructional model that I've created myself is called the Writing, Design, and Performance Model for Public Speaking. So if you're, a corporate professional, or if you're an event organizer for businesses and you want to improve the public speaking skills of your team, then I would definitely be a great resource for that as well. So.
Jordan, you've got a bright future ahead, and I'm thrilled that you accepted my invitation to spend a few minutes with me. And I have to tell you, I enjoyed our conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social justice and education. And I want to thank you for taking my questions today. And by the way, I followed you this morning on Instagram, by the way, so that's good. But I want to thank you for taking my questions. It's most appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation as well. You take care, and hopefully your Lions get something right this season. So.
Well, I'm not holding my breath on that, but thanks so much for that, buddy.
All right, sounds good. You take care.